sweet Jesu, give me a natural remembrance of your passion. Saturday, O sweet Jesu, possess my heart, hold and keep it only for you. Possess my heart, hold and keep it only for you. This is the patron saint of our diocese, St. John Fisher. He was a bishop in Rochester, England. That's how he got to be the saint of Rochester, New York, who died in the Tower of London, or was imprisoned in the Tower of London. He got taken out of the tower to die, right? He was beheaded by Henry VIII. This man wrote beautiful prayers to Jesus that have that same quality. What is the quality I started to see? Well, they go all in. Possess me. I want to give you everything. Take everything. Be the only one. Enter my room. Be with me. If I don't have you, what do I have? They're intense. They give all of themselves, right? Body, soul, heart, intellect, will, imagination. Everything goes into the mix. I was so struck by this in the prayers of the saints. And this is the way I personally began to pray, and do pray unto this day. Okay? Don't ever think that there's anything wrong with going all in with God, because this is what they do. And when you start to pray this way, get ready, because he's all in too. And that's what they come to know. That is what they come to know. So this was the next thing. Was this quality of the saints' prayer, the way that they talk to God with such intensity, with passion, with the gift of their whole selves, vulnerability, entirely open to him.
Entonces, mientras más ella averiguaba sobre los santos, se preguntaba, ¿qué significa? Me estoy haciendo amiga de los santos, porque así como yo estoy pasando más tiempo con ellos, pues ellos también pasan tiempo conmigo. ¿Y qué significa precisamente hacerse amigo de alguien, pasar tiempo con esa persona? Llega un punto donde comienzas a actuar como esa persona, llega un punto donde piensas como esa persona, llega un punto donde te vistes como esa persona, hasta la manera de vestir, la manera de hablar, se parece a la de esa persona, nos convertimos en similares. Entonces, una de las cosas que en su investigación se dio cuenta era la manera como ellos oraban, le oraban a Dios. Ellos oraban de una manera muy intensa. Ella leyó dos oraciones de santos. Uno era Saint Anselm de Canterbury y el otro era de la otra era de Saint John Fisher, el cual era de Rochester, allá en Inglaterra. Las oraciones eran súper intensas porque una de ellas decía como: Dios, estoy desesperado de verte, estoy celoso de no poder verte, te doy todo, te doy mi alma, te pido, estoy aquí llorando, estoy sufriendo porque no te veo, quiero que me muestres tu cara, Señor, para yo estar salvo. Y era una manera muy intensa, muy bonita de cómo presentarse a Dios y pedirle a Dios cómo lo buscas. Y eso le hizo dar cuenta de que eso lo que muestra era vulnerabilidad. Muchos de estos santos entonces lo que le mostraban a Dios era su vulnerabilidad. En la oración de Saint John Fisher también hablaba de eso, de cómo le pedía, como le decía que él lo estaba buscando, que quería verlo, que quería darle su corazón, le pedía que tomara su corazón completamente y que se lo entregaba a él, que viniera a su cuarto, que viniera a su casa, que estuviera con él. Entonces ellos se entregan por completo a Dios y eso es lo que ella quiere resaltar, la calidad de la oración. Si esa oración tiene esa calidad, con seguridad, pues Dios la va a responder. Y si nosotros aprendemos a orar de esa manera, debemos más bien prepararnos, porque Él va a responder y va a responder con creces, porque Dios es así.
Okay. So, a better word to describe the saints is that they're lovers. But I even want to take this to another level, okay? Because they are lovers, and they do give of themselves. But what I also started realizing was that they love because they are loved. So, what is that secret source of their calm, their certainty, right? Their confidence in the most difficult situations? It is the fact that they have a relationship with someone who loves them and is present to them in the most difficult circumstances. Mysteriously present, right? I'm not saying Jesus shows up in every bad place. I don't have a vision, but he is always present. He is always acting. And what the saints started drawing me to was Jesus Christ. I mean, it was a very mysterious path for me. I told you I grew up very, very Catholic, but I will tell you that I did not have at all growing up a devotion to the Sacred Heart. My father had kind of a devotion to the Sacred Heart, which he never shared with me, so I didn't know anything about what it meant to him. I know he did the First Fridays. I know he wore a medal, but as I was spending more and more time with the saints, what kept striking me was the heart. The words even that are used in the traditional ways of describing these people, ardent, fervent, passionate, they all come back to something with the heart. So I became very fascinated with this idea, right, of speaking to God with the heart. You know, I said this 2 weeks ago at the Women's Day of Prayer when Pope Francis came out with his encyclical last year on the human and divine love of Jesus Christ, Dilexit Nos, it's on the Sacred Heart. I was like, thank you. Because that encyclical, in one little document, has everything I was discovering with the saints. I am not kidding. I did a retreat. I don't think anybody here was, actually Brenda was on this retreat. I did a retreat on the heart right before this encyclical came out. And then it came out and I think, well, I didn't do the retreat because I have some kind of inside track to the Vatican, okay? I have none. I did this retreat based on the saints. This is the heart of our faith, everybody. Jesus Christ has come to love us. And he loves us with such an intimate, personal, intense love. Through the encounter with the saints, I was starting to realize, I was looking at him, which is all the saints really want us to do, to meet him. They're bringing us to him, the source of their love. Now, you probably know that Pope Francis, was it Francis or Leo? It was Leo who made Newman a doctor of the church. I'm sorry, it's all this last year's big blur right now in the best way. Pope Leo just made John Henry Newman doctor of the church, right? Englishman. And it's so beautiful. This past week, I read an article about John Henry Newman's devotion to the Sacred Heart. By the way, that's also in Pope Francis's writing, is this man. Now, John Henry Newman, if you know anything about him, you know he's a convert. He was an Anglican priest, who came into the Catholic Church. He was incredibly gifted intellectually. Before he came into the church, he was really considered the smartest man in the church. Okay? This man, who was a very, very high-level intellectual, had very deep, profound devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. The article I was reading this week, I brought it here with me because I wouldn't typically ever quote an academic article, a talk of this character. But the author does such a great job of summarizing what this incredible intellectual encountered in the heart of Jesus Christ. I'm going to read only 2 sentences. Sacred Heart of Jesus functions as something of an icon that the pierced heart of Jesus seems to reverse our gaze and, in a sense, gaze at us. The Sacred Heart of Jesus is a testament that God loves each as each. Indeed, loves each of us intimately, relentlessly, tenderly, forgivingly, and with infinite patience. Above all, the Sacred Heart of Jesus demonstrates a God who loves us utterly, unconditionally. This is what I was discovering in the saints. I didn't even have a word to put on it. I was with people that were free people, happy people, joyful people, because they had let this love into their lives, change everything. Jesus Christ loves us more than anybody ever will. The person in your life whose love is the most amazing, he loves you infinitely more than. In my prayer, I'll be honest with you, I started moving into that space. What do I mean? What do I want? What do I most want? Who would the Prince Charming be if he were going to show up for, back to the Cinderella metaphor? What would this person be if they entered my life? And every moment with them made me always want, always seen. That's the God that we have. And that's the God that the saints meet and stay with. And he is the one who sustains them every moment of their circumstances. That was where I started going. That's where I'm still trying to go, to be honest with you, is in that direction. Because once you get in with them, they're going to lead you to him. Andrew Bissett, by the way, used to get really mad. You know what? One of the things he really got mad about was when people would say, "You healed me." He said, "No, God healed you through St. Joseph." He would get furious at people if they said, "You healed me." That's a saint. Not because he's gone and tried to be super humble. It's because he knows where it all comes from. It's the source of his everything. So why would you ever take any credit for that? Now, put it all together, okay? I want you to put all this together. These people are here, these saints. They're here, and I do mean here, right? Padre Pio said, "I'll be a better friend to you after I die." Saint Therese, "I will spend my heaven doing good on earth." They are here to help us, to take us by the hand, be our friends, to guide us to the only one who can really give us everything. That is Jesus Christ. They're not in heaven, okay? They are in heaven, of course, it's mysterious, but they want to be with us. They want to be our friends. They want to show us what has made their life so amazing. So that's, when we have All Saints Day, this is just one big party, guys. This is one big party that we're invited to. And that is going to be the best party we could ever imagine. We just have to start. We just have to open our hearts. And I'm going to say a few words about that, but I'm going to let him jump in and do a translation on that.
Hey. Ella tenía una imagen, ella fue desde una imagen inicial de los santos, donde era, que es la que muchas personas tienen. Los santos son gente que siguen reglas, los santos son gente perfecta. Y eso fue cambiando poco a poco a medida que los conocía más, a ser personas que sencillamente amaban, ¿no? Sean amorosas. Ellos se daban a sí mismos. Y ellos amaban porque son amados. Se dio cuenta de que eso era otra cosa que era común entre ellos. Ellos amaban incondicionalmente porque ellos también eran amados. Pero ella se preguntaba, ¿de dónde viene ese amor? ¿De dónde viene esa situación que, a pesar de ser humanos, a pesar de todas las cosas que tuvieron que enfrentar, ellos podían amar a otras personas y lo mostraban así? Ellos tenían una relación con alguien que les amaba, eso es lo que estaba claro. Y eso le hizo dar cuenta de que esa relación era con Cristo. Muchos de los santos usaban un lenguaje que hacía eh, pensar que el punto común era el corazón, porque hablaban de la pasión, del fuego, de esa intensidad con la que oraban. Todo hacía pensar que era el corazón lo que realmente es su punto de conexión pues, con Cristo. Ella mencionó que la encíclica del Papa Francisco que salió el año pasado sobre el Sagrado Corazón de Jesús salió precisamente como que el día después de que ella hizo una presentación sobre eso. Y bueno, lo bonito fue que él confirmó todo lo que dice allí el Papa, confirmó las mismas cosas que ella hacía en su presentación, ella decía en su presentación. También se dio cuenta de que en la fuente de ese amor que mostraban los santos, pues precisamente el sagrado corazón de Jesús. Y comentó la historia de John Henry Newman, que era una persona muy inteligente, extremadamente inteligente, y era parte de la iglesia. Y de hecho, para ese momento donde él estaba vivo, era considerado la persona más inteligente de la iglesia. Y era muy devoto del Sagrado Corazón de Jesús. Y también hizo mención sobre un artículo que ella leyó, que a pesar de que ella trata de no usar artículos académicos, sus presentaciones, ella hizo una pequeña cita sobre ese artículo porque hablaba precisamente de cómo John Newman se refería al Sagrado Corazón de Jesús. Y que Dios nos ama de una manera muy tierna, con misericordia, con perdón, sin condiciones y sin querer nada a cambio, lo cual refleja muy bonito sobre esa relación que los santos tienen con Cristo y que es la relación que nosotros debemos buscar. Eso fue lo que ella reconoció precisamente en los santos y que esa conexión la lograron precisamente porque dejaron entrar al corazón de Jesús. Ella ha conocido gente que en su vida que se ven que son libres, que no tienen, que a pesar de que puedan tener problemas humanos, normales, humanos, normales, esas personas son libres. Y la razón es que ella se da cuenta de que han dejado entrar al amor de Cristo en su vida. Entonces ella lo que está tratando ahora en su vida y con todos los cambios que esto ha llevado a hacer en su vida es dejar entrar precisamente a un Dios que la ama sinceramente, completamente. Por supuesto, devolviendo también el amor hacia Él. La persona que cuando la persona esa que referimos hace un rato sobre que trabajaba pero que hacía sanaciones en el oratorio de San José allá en Montreal, cuando la gente decía, oye, me sanaste, él se molestaba y decía, no, te sanó Dios a través de San José, porque él sabía de dónde venía eso, él sabía que él no era, el poder no venía de él, el poder venía de Dios, y que San José no era más que en ese momento pues el intercesor. Y él simplemente era una herramienta. Los santos están en el cielo, pero ellos quieren estar entre nosotros, así que nosotros estamos invitados a una fiesta muy bonita, una fiesta, y hoy precisamente la vamos a celebrar. Es una fiesta en la que ellos están entre nosotros y están mostrándonos su amor.
I don't know what I do. Okay, maybe it just stops after a while. So you notice that I've gone all the way through this talk, and I haven't said anything about sin. That's kind of unusual in Catholic circles to get this far and not have mentioned sin. And why? Why haven't I? Because this encounter the saints are pointing us to is primarily an encounter of love. And in this encounter, everything in us that is failing or lacking will be transformed. We don't begin with what's missing. We begin with what we're given. We begin with the incredible mercy of God that is being poured out on us at every moment. This is what the saints discover. And they never leave that font of mercy. They never walk away from it. You know, in my own life, I've had this experience that sometimes I feel really bad because, gosh, it takes so long for me to get past my failings, like the things that I'm addicted to, the things I'm attracted to that I shouldn't be attracted to, right? The confused ways I'm thinking, the wounds I have from my past. But actually, I discovered, hanging with the saints, that the saints spend long periods of their lives letting themselves be healed. There's one thing about Catholics that I see is everybody wants to be good already, right? I have my conversion experience and tomorrow I'm going to be good, right? Well, you know what? I know I've made this joke before, but one of the, for Magnificat I had to write monthly themes. And I always wanted to write one that was something like saints who went and lived in a cave for 3 years. Why? Because in the lives of the saints, they're always going away for long periods of time, being alone with just them and God. What was happening in that time? Were they being superheroes? No. They were showing up in the place where they could be alone with the one who loves them. And he was changing them. He was healing them. Just like all of us, they had problems. They had wounds. And they don't all get healed, by the way, because wounds don't get healed until heaven, totally. Even Jesus has his wounds still. But what you see in the saints' lives is that they let Jesus take all the time with them that they need. If it's going to take time, it's going to take time. So all I want to tell you is if you're going to follow saints, you're going to give yourself all the time you need. And you're going to get all the help you need. And if that means you're going to come to Mass every day, you're going to come to Mass every day because you need it. That means you're going to come to confession once a week. Father Tony will have to set up new hours. Sorry, Father. I'm sorry, but that's a fact, right? If you had 50 people coming for confession every week. But the thing is that this is the thing. These sacraments are the healing. Adoration. Profound moment of healing. You don't have to get in there and do anything but let him love you. Well, what prayer should I be saying? Open the Gospels. Find the weakest person in the Gospels who is most attractive to you, because those people are saints too. And look at their story and understand and see how they're seen and loved by Jesus Christ. Can we not relate to Zacchaeus, right? That little guy who climbs the tree, right? He's just all he does is want to get a better view of this guy Jesus. Jesus comes along and says, "Hey, I'm coming to your house." Don't we relate to the other sinners that we see in there? Woman with the hemorrhage, who isn't really a sinner. Actually, she just needs help. She needs healing like the rest of us. Lately, I've been so focused on two stories from the New Testament, and I have to tell you, they do touch my prayer intimately. One of them is the woman caught in adultery. I love to talk about her. What I love about her story is she never turns to Jesus and says, I've committed a sin. Forgive me. She actually doesn't really say much of anything in that story. She's about to be stoned. She's traumatized. Jesus bends down on the ground, let her know that he's there and he's not going to be another man who traumatizes her. The beautiful thing about that story is he knows her heart. He doesn't have to say it. He knows her heart. That's the heart, guys. Bring him your heart. He knows what's in your heart. You might not even have the words to say, but he can begin to work with it as soon as you let him into your space. As soon as you let him in, he's going to work with that. The other one is the man who's let down on the stretcher through the opening in the roof, right? What I love, once again, he doesn't ask for anything. It's his friends that do the asking. This has been so consoling for me because to me it expresses the absolute power of intercessory. We're all worried about people in our lives. Those people were worried about their friend. Guess what? Jesus healed their friend because they brought him. If you bring people to him, he'll heal them. We don't have to worry. This is how much he loves us. He'll do anything for us. He's always looking for a way in. He's always looking for a way. We have to start to understand what he's really like. We have to start to understand that he is not the God that I was stuck on, who's out in the ether somewhere and really has nothing to do with life. He's always here. He's always looking to have a moment with us. He's always looking for an opening that he can enter. This beautiful image, I've given it before. It's in a book called He and I by Gabrielle Bossi, who is a French woman, modern mystic. She was a woman who had a job in the world. She was a choreographer and a dramatist, and she used to go to all these parishes and put on little plays. So she wasn't a nun, she wasn't in a convent, but she had this very beautiful, intimate inner life with Jesus. And over time, she wrote down all the little things that Jesus said to her. One of the things he says to her, and I just love this because this is just how he is, I think. She's on a train track one day waiting for the train to come. She traveled through Europe on trains. And, you know, just like all of us, like, you know how it is when you're in the subway, you're like, is it coming yet? When is it coming? She's doing this, and as she's doing this, Jesus says to her, you know how you're leaning over waiting for that train to come? That's how I always am waiting. That's how he is. That's really all. Like, if you get one image like that, can carry you a long way in prayer. It can take you a very long way in prayer. So all that we need to do is show up for adoration, we show up for Mass, we show up for confession, we pray, we open our scriptures and find the best place, and just dive right in where we are. Make friends with the saints that are most like us, or maybe not like us, I don't know. It's really you let your heart guide you forward. But what I want to encourage us to do is all we live with this intensity, with the freedom to find the thing that's the pearl of great price, and know that God wants us to work for that every day, never stop. We can dive right in with all that same intensity that the saints did, and he is going to respond. That's all I can tell you. I can tell you that that's my life. That's my life. Once I got in with the saints, now you see what I do. He brings us along. That's what he does. He brings us to the place that we need. All right. That's what I have to offer you this morning. I'll let us hear this in Spanish.
Ok, se han dado cuenta de que durante toda la mañana que hemos hablado no ha hablado sobre el pecado. Y es sencillamente porque el pecado es como una falla para nosotros. Nosotros no debemos enfocarnos en ello. Todos tenemos fallas, somos humanos. Inclusive los santos tuvieron en algún momento fallas. Todos tenemos pasado, todos tenemos heridas que vivimos en la vida. Sin embargo, los santos se concentraron precisamente en la sanación. Cuando entregaron su vida a Dios, cuando ellos se enfocaron en dejar entrar el amor de Dios y de Cristo, ellos se concentraron en la sanación. Muchos de ellos a veces, ella comentaba de que cuando estaba haciendo lo de los boletines, ella quería centrarse mucho en aquellos santos que se pasaban 3 años en una cueva, precisamente haciendo reflexión, porque esas son personas que reconocieron inmediatamente que necesitaban tiempo para sanar, y eso es lo que nosotros también necesitamos. Nosotros tenemos que adorar, sanar, venir a misa, y tener siempre una relación con Dios e irla incrementando, porque todo eso lleva tiempo. Muchas de nuestras heridas realmente no van a sanar de manera completa, porque dice que hasta Cristo, estando en el cielo, todavía tiene sus heridas. Pero debemos concentrarnos precisamente en la sanación espiritual. Ella toma dos historias de los evangelios que la han ayudado mucho en su vida de oración. Una de ellas es la historia de la adúltera que fue sorprendida, que iba a ser apedreada. Ella nota como en esa historia o en esa narración, ella no dice absolutamente nada, la persona no dice absolutamente nada, pero sabe cómo Cristo conoce su corazón, y de esa manera pues ella nos dice pues que la reflexión, que Cristo conoce el corazón nuestro también, que aun cuando nosotros no le dijéramos nada, Él sabe lo que estamos sufriendo, lo que estamos pensando, pero precisamente a través de la oración pues nosotros podemos ayudarnos. El hombre la otra historia del Evangelio también habla del hombre que estaba en una camilla y que tuvieron que bajar desde el techo en el sitio donde estaba Jesús en ese tiempo. En la narración él tampoco dice absolutamente nada, pero son sus amigos los que le piden a Jesús que lo sane. Y eso también es un mensaje muy poderoso, como aun cuando las personas no se están entregando a Cristo necesariamente, por lo menos en palabra, ellos probablemente se entregaron en corazón y fueron sus amigos los que a través de la intercesión lograron que esas personas fueran perdonadas. En el caso del adúltero, ella fue perdonada y en el caso del hombre, pues fue sanado. Entonces ella hace una reflexión final de que Dios está siempre aquí, Él está con nosotros. Y menciona un libro que se llama He and I, Él y yo, de una autora que no era particularmente una monja o algo así, ella era una coreógrafa, pero que ella tuvo una experiencia con Jesús. Y habla de una narración que ella hizo en el libro que habla de que ella viaja mucho por Europa en el tren y en un momento que ella está esperando en un tren, ella se asoma y ve ¿sabe? Como hace uno siempre cuando uno está esperando cualquier tren, uno mira sobre las pistas a ver si ya viene. Y en ese momento Jesús le dio el mensaje que así como tú estás esperando el tren, así te espero yo por ti, para que vengas a mí. Entonces su mensaje final es: necesitamos asistir, de verdad, venir a Él, venir a la misa, venir a los sacramentos, venir a la adoración, confesarnos y entregarle nuestro corazón sobre todo. Vivamos con la intensidad con la que vivieron estos santos, así es como ella vive y nos invita a que tengamos ese tipo de vida, porque ella ya en su vida ha visto los resultados y ella lo que quiere es que tengamos una vida de la misma manera.
Yes. Sure. Sure. These are the words, it's interesting you asked about that because when I was marking this up, I thought, if I could get a tattoo, I could get a tattoo. What am I saying if I could? To have these words, right? Sacred Heart of Jesus is a testament that God loves each as each indeed loves us intimately, relentlessly, tenderly, forgivingly, and with infinite patience. And then, in case that wasn't enough for you, he also says, above all, the Sacred Heart of Jesus demonstrates a God who loves us utterly and unconditionally. I'll just tell you where this is because I think this is a very accessible academic article. It's by Cyril O'Regan, Oregan, and this is in the Church Life Journal, which is online. It's a Notre Dame publication that's online, and you can just go in there and probably type in John Henry Newman, and it would come up right away. Pretty recent, but just to give you a couple more words, there's another thing that he says here that just, I thought it's amazing. He quotes Newman first. Newman writes, "Thou art careful and tender to each of the beings that thou hast created, as if it were the only one in the world." Reagan says, each of us is screamingly breakable and vulnerable, and God accounts for this. And to me, this is the truth that we get to dive into this. in our lives of prayer with the Lord. We get to talk to him like he is this way because he is this way. And we get to look for it because it's there. Andre Bassett, how does someone get to be Andre Bassett, right? That's like the question of the moment. Andre Bassett was a man who had a very rough childhood, became an orphan, total orphan by the age of 12, utter poverty, was sickly and frail, worked in 36 different trades trying to find a job. 36! I couldn't believe somebody actually counted them all. Because you'd look at the different stories and they'd say, well, he was a bricklayer and a baker and a cobbler, and then finally I found someplace that they said 36. 36. He was so sickly and frail, though, that he couldn't succeed in any of them. Finally, but I will tell you, he prayed. Prayed. What was his prayer? Begging. He was a beggar. Talk about vulnerability before God. Help me. I don't know how I'm going to survive, right? I don't know how I'm going to make it in this. And then a priest says to him, I think you should try out to be a brother, religious brother. They take him over. He was unable to write. He only could write his name. Could read, but he could only write his name. Very poorly educated, unable to write. Gets there, and they say, okay, we'll take him on for a while. But when it came time to take his vows, like within a year, the order, Holy Cross order, said, we don't want you to stay with us because you are so sickly. He was a premature baby when he was born, and he was sickly all his life. You are so sickly that we don't believe you'll be able to fulfill the vows, right? So it's actually cruelty to make someone take vows, right? And then they can't fulfill poverty, chastity, and obedience. And golly, Andre Bassett went to the bishop and said, I want to be a brother. And the bishop went back to them and said, no, you got to keep this guy. And his novice master, God bless him, looked at him and said, well, at least he can pray. Well, at least he can pray. And this is the man that healed all those people and built that incredible oratory. Where did that come from? Begging. It didn't come from a bit of strength that he had, putting himself in front of the Lord and opening his heart totally. He probably thought, I can put one foot in front of the other. I can't do any of that without the Lord and without St. Joseph, who became like his surrogate father. And so, the Lord, once you get that dependent on God, then the conduit is open. Conduit is open. I like to think of the love of God as like a tsunami that is just waiting to completely inundate the earth. Saints are the places where somebody says, okay, I'm going to let this flow, right? I'm going to let it flow through me. I'm not going to stop it. That's what saints say. They say, I'm going to start taking the part of me that prevents God from entering the world and changing it. I'm going to take away that part of me. I'm going to let go of that part of me that stops this love from the world. This is just a St. Therese image, by the way, so I can't take credit for any of this. But this is the thing that we have to realize, is that God wants this love to enter the world, and we can let it enter the world through us. That's what we see in the saints. That's what we see in the saints. I often think, I have to be honest, I often think, we go to our parishes, you see all this kind of tension, and people have their ministries, and they have their things that, and everybody has something that they want to accomplish. And I often think to myself, well, we just let it all go. It'll all work out, right? Because God will take care of it. God can do. We don't have to take care. Like, I'm not saying that we should every day get up and do what we do, for his glory, but we don't do it to accomplish something amazing, right? He accomplishes amazing. He will make it amazing. He makes things amazing. That's what he does. Another question. Yes. Yes, that's Saint Anselm. And I'll give you his dates. I wrote it on my paper. I think he's 10 something. Anselm. 1033 to 1109. Archbishop of Canterbury in England. Other questions? Oh, beautiful. Well, I love the Song of Songs. The Song of Songs is maybe the book of the Bible that is most misunderstood, right? Because it's a love poem. And so I think, certainly when I was younger, I got talked out of reading the Song of Songs when I was a young woman because somebody said to me, oh, you have to have special training to read the Song of Songs. But what I love about the Song of Songs, and I know I said this at the Women's Day of Prayer, so if you were there, forgive me for repeating it, but is the way it starts. And this is not my observation, this is Bernard of Clairvaux, right? It begins in the middle. Let him kiss me with the kiss of his mouth. And as Bernard says, what is this beginning? Who is talking? Who are they talking about? And what is it with all this kissing, right? Let him kiss me with the kiss of his mouth. But I put that together with something that Pope Benedict used to say all the time, which is we are born into a love story. It's this book of the Bible that begins in the middle of the love story, right? Two people passionately in love, right? What is this love story? God is loving us into being. And yeah, there was a sin at the beginning. And now he's loving us into being again through the redemption of the world through Jesus Christ. Because he was not going to have that. Yes. Wow, that's intense. I have to think that through. It probably is a commentary on that. Draw me in your steps, let us run. So what do you have this image of God being like a lover who grabs his beloved by the hand and just pulls her along, right? Draw me in your steps. And I think that is a beautiful image of God. And we do resist. I mean, we can, we do. We can't help it because that's what it is to be a fallen human being. But the more you let him pull you, the more he'll go. I mean, this is why I say I think that the real work of the saints is letting him love. It's not getting out and doing. Because once he's captivated our hearts, then the world is his, right? Once he's captured your heart, isn't he going to start to capture everybody in your family? By the way, that actually happens to Bernard of Clairvaux's family, right? He's like good in his family where like half of his brothers and sisters and his dad are all blessed, or his mom, they're all blesseds, But that's what happens, right? Let him capture your heart. You don't actually have to worry about other people. I do like to say this because when I have retreats for women, I notice one of the things that women often bring, I think it's because we're women, is I'm really worried about my child. That's usually I'm really worried about my child who's left the church or they're going off and doing something really crazy, or they're living with someone, or they're not baptizing their kid's faith or whatever. And my one response to that is, let him change your heart. Because we can get distracted thinking, I've got to get out there and do something for everybody else. He only needs ours. He can, and you see this in the saints, right? Andre Basset didn't say, I'll give you my heart, Jesus, and then you can go heal all these people, right? He wasn't thinking about those people. He was just like, I'll give you my heart. Then look at the overflow. Look at what happens when you let him just take over. He gets everybody. At our retreat last week, it was really beautiful. One of his third cousin was there. She testified how her brother was healed, Andre Basset. Yes. 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 Right. I think you're just doing the other translation of that one that I just said. And I think this is very good because put me in mind of Saint Therese. You know, Therese, that's where she uses that image of the flood. You know how like you know, let me just say what I mean. You know, when you see, I mean, it's a scary thing, right? But when you see a flood happen and like it goes over the valley and all of a sudden houses and cars are all being picked up and moved with the water. Well, Therese's idea is that's how God's love is, right? So when He floods your life, everything's just going to get picked up and moved with Him, taken away into the love, including the people that you love, including the people that you love. Saint Catherine of Siena is a great witness to this too. Catherine of Siena said to Jesus, "I am just counting on you taking everybody I love with me to heaven. I'm counting on this." So at a certain point, her mother got really sick, and they all said she's on her deathbed, she's about to die. And her mother was actually her mother had a lot of children, but she was quite a hard woman. Maybe because she had a lot of children. I don't know, but she was quite a hard woman. And Catherine was really worried because she did not feel her mother was dying in a state of grace, right? She was very concerned. So she just went straight out the door to Jesus and said, I asked you that nobody that I love will not come. And her mother got better. Her mother revived and lived many more years and went through a conversion experience. So to me, that's an example of this idea of like, we're all going to be drawn together. We're all going to be drawn together. And we don't have to, I truly don't think we have to worry about people. I mean, we have to pray for people around us, absolutely. But the transformation is just let Him transform me, right? And trust He can do the rest. He's got it all taken care of. So just rest, confidence in Him. Sure. Well, so the biggest thing that happened to me, there's been a lot of big things I think that God has done in this time, happened to me about, this is about 7 years ago. 6 years, which was that I was going through a very difficult time. I was still writing about the saints. I was living in Cortland at the time. I was going through a very difficult time. But without going into any details into like what the difficulty was, because of this encounter with the saints, I got an idea. And this is the idea. I was going to start writing out what I was feeling, but I was going to write it in the persona of a saint. So I started writing these, I guess I would say letters to God, but in the letters I was Mary Magdalene. So I it was really a writing exercise in a way. I was actually part of a Catholic women's writers group at the time, and everybody was doing these super creative things, and I was writing saints essays, so I thought, well, I'll try something super creative. But it was one of the most powerful things I've ever done, doing that. Because I let myself speak to God as I imagine and in that time, I was saying things not unlike what I just, and just completely from my heart. And within about a month, I felt that He was responding. It was very mysterious how it was happening, but I just became very vulnerable. Just became very, very, very vulnerable with Him. And I just I was just copying what I saw other people do, right? But I think that God just loves that vulnerability. It's vulnerability is it's um, it's what is the word I want to use? Vulnerability begets vulnerability. They've actually done studies on this. Like if you're in a relationship with somebody or in a meeting, one person at the meeting suddenly shares something vulnerable. I'm really stuck, right? I don't know how to. I'm in my position. I don't know how to go forward. All of a sudden, everybody else becomes more vulnerable because you've opened a door. And I think just to bring it to a really kind of great level, since Disney is a theme, I was listening to that song from Frozen, "Love is an Open Door," and that's really what it was. Love is an open. I think when you open the door, God, He can't help it. Can't help it. He just wants to be part of your life. So I guess what I would just say, it took time. It was a slow growth, but my own experience has been that the more vulnerable we are with Him, the more we will start to sense His presence and see what He's doing and be in that day-to-day. Yes. Andre Bissett would be great, actually, because he could hardly eat. One of the reasons he was so small and frail was that he had whatever sickness he had as a child, he had a really hard time holding down food. But there's a lot of, Frances Xavier Cabrini, another great one, right? She was so small, they thought she was going to die. She tried to get into order after order, and they kept saying, "You can't." And Frances Xavier Cabrini, I think, got through her whole part of her life just on herself. There's no way to explain these saints otherwise. Some of them begin so broken. They begin their life so broken, and they just So Frances Xavier Cabrini would. I would say there's some stories that are really helpful. Dorothy Day, and even to know about her background, the stuff. Like they have traumas. They have traumas just like we think. I put Mary McKillop on there. Her parents were divorced. She came from a big Catholic family, and her father could not provide for the family. And eventually, her mother couldn't do it they were so poor, they had to split up. But the father was a good father, but there was something. Maybe a mental illness. He just couldn't get a job and keep a job. He couldn't do it. But there isn't a problem in your life that a saint hasn't. And I like to think of it that means that all of us are, we're all on the track. We're all going to become saints, right? Because there's nothing don't tell me that there's something in your life that disqualifies you. There is nothing in your life that disqualifies you. Not the things you've done, not the things your family has done, not the suffering that you've experienced. All of that is something that God can work with. That's a really good, I don't know. That are registered. Does anybody else know that? How many saints are registered, like in the all the saints? We have a lot of really big martyr groups. Some of them are quite large. That website, CatholicSaints.info, which I kind of do like, They have 17,000 names on that site. 17. Oh, yes, some. Yeah, why? Tell me why. Yes, 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 yeah, yes, yes. No, this is great, so great. I don't know if everybody heard St. Martin de Porres. So St. Martin de Porres was he was the child of a black woman, right? And I think she was an ex-slave, and then a Spanish nobleman, I believe. Yes, he did. But for a while, he rejected Martin, right? He would not. He would not. Right? He would not. Yes. 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 He's a perfect example for what we're just talking about because he had a lot of suffering in his young life. He couldn't actually. He was a Dominican brother, and he couldn't enter the Dominicans because he was the son of a slave. He was undereducated, right? Because at that time, in order to enter the orders, you had to have a certain minimum of education, and so he had to become a brother. And Dominicans, and he was a barber surgeon, like so. At that time, he would do the tooth extractions. I'm trying to share with everyone, and just the gentleness and the simple miracles that came through. And then also, he could speak to animals. He had a relationship with the animals. Yes. Yes. Yes, no, that's beautiful. He's such a perfect example. Martin de Porres is a great one. Yes. 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 That's right. Amen. My heart belongs to Jesus and Mary. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, so much of the power of these saints is their capacity to stay with God. Like you said, I know who I belong to. Right? That was the prayer. Possess my heart. One has possessed my heart. So when we let God have that power over us, then really when the evil one comes, he always does. We have temptations all the time. Temptations to despair, temptations to give up, temptations to judge ourselves, to judge other people. We can just push them to the side, really reject them. They don't need to be there. And this is one of the things, this is the miracle of the saints' lives, is that they kind of stand firm and no, I'm loved. No, there is one who loves me and wants me and holds me close. And I'm not going to step out. I'm not going to step into this space of not love. Like, I'm not going to go into the places where I don't feel loved. Right? So I love that. Martin de Porres is a great example. He's great. Thank you. Any other good saints that we should be talking about? All right. Well, I want to thank you all very much. I want to thank my translator. That's a much harder job. And I mean, that's kind of like I have to just say that I love I love when there's something that's bilingual, because I just think that God is in love with us magnifying his glory. Like, it's one thing to say the talk, but then it's out there in Spanish, and like it's just, it opens it up so much. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me. This is a huge blessing, and for listening to my story. And you're welcome anytime at any Saints retreat. I am very pleased to say that we're going to be able to continue them in 2026. So hope to see you.
So we really, really do appreciate Lisa coming here. It's not her first time being with us. We're hoping it's not going to be her last, okay? Yes, definitely. Okay. So I think we're going to book her for the next 5 years. What do you say? I got to get my dates in quickly. So we are just so grateful to her because we can go to God in all kinds of ways with the help of all kinds of people. And these saints are just wonderful people for all of us. And each one, like Lisa's new shirt now says, I have a saint for that. Okay? So just give yourself to God, but also ask the saints to intercede for you at times too. And I think that is so powerful. So I'm just grateful that you were all here. Thank you for coming. Most especially, thank you for Lisa. And we are going to have a feast day mass that starts at 12 noon. Okay, so that's about 30 minutes. So you have about 30 minutes to be quiet, to maybe you need to take a walk around the parking lot. I don't know what you need to do, but whatever. But we're going to start mass at 12 noon. If people are only coming. Oh, also those cards that Lisa gave each of us, which was just so thoughtful. I was really touched by that. I learned that she spent a good chunk of change on that. Okay, so there's a little basket over there on the table. So if you would like to donate to that, so that she has a little cash flow to do it for the next group, and the next group, and the next group, and it's just going to keep going on. Okay. So would you like to talk a little bit more about the saints for about, yes? Yes. Okay. The pastor speaks.
Okay. I mean, I could do this all day, so. Okay, good. This is good to know. I would actually really love if people, just to say a thing about these prayer cards. So, I was doing as I said, I did the Women's Day of Prayer a couple weeks ago, and I just had this. They had asked me, could you send a list of saints that we could order holy cards for? So I made up a list of saints, just kind of like my top 10 women saints. And then the week of, I suddenly had this idea that I wanted to make my own holy cards. And it just came to me, and I thought, oh, they probably went and bought those holy cards already. And then I emailed them, and it turned out they hadn't made the holy cards. So I said, I'm making holy cards for the group. But what I would love if people have a saint that has really touched them and changed them. There's 100 people or 1,000 people I could put on these cards, but I'd like to make some more. I don't really know what's going to happen with them. I only can tell you, it's kind of a discernment of spirits. I had so much fun doing this. It was like crazy amount of fun for me. So I concluded that God must be smiling on me in this situation, and I thought, I think you probably want me to keep doing this, Lord. So I'm going to keep it up, and I'm happy to make them as long as I have a translator that I can rely on. I'm happy to do them in English and Spanish so they can get around. So if there's saints, yes. Yeah.